Hello. I am so glad I found you again.
Why, thank you. It's a rare thing to be so appreciated.
Well, I have been concerned about my silver ever since I read an article on ZeroHedge.com about the Hunt brothers.
Yes.
People are saying we are all modern-day Hunt brothers for investing in silver.
Really? Do you know who the Hunt brothers were?
Well, no, not really.
The Hunt brothers were Texas oil billionaires who started buying silver in the early 1970s, because at that time it was illegal to own gold, and they saw tremendous inflation coming. So they bought silver instead.
Why did they see tremendous inflation coming?
Because the President Nixon had just repudiated the Bretton Woods Agreement by refusing to exchange gold for dollars anymore.
What was the Bretton Woods Agreement?
The Bretton Woods Agreement was a world dollar gold standard set up after World War II.
How did it work?
Since most of the world's gold had flowed to the United States during the war, and America had a huge undamaged industrial capacity, it agreed to back its dollar with gold for any country that wanted to exchange it.
So any country which had US dollars could exchange them for gold?
Yes. At the fixed rate of $35 per ounce.
So the dollar was as good as gold?
Yes. At that time it was. But the spending of the 1960s on guns and butter called that into question. And when France demanded to exchange her dollars for gold in 1971, the President Nixon said no and slammed the door shut.
So that's when the Hunt brothers started buying silver?
Yes. Silver was under $2 per ounce when the Hunt brothers started buying it. And they were worth about $13 billion at that time.
So the Hunt brothers could have bought nearly 7 billion ounces of silver?
Yes. Theoretically. But doing so would have likely put the price up on themselves. So more like a few billion ounces at most.
So is that what they did? And if so, how did they end up bankrupt?
Yes. It's what they did at first. But when their buying had only pushed the price up to $5 an ounce, they started buying futures contracts with borrowed money to push it up further. This is what did them in.
How did it do them in?
Because the Hunt brothers were buying silver futures all the way up to $50 an ounce. But then the government quickly changed the rules on them and made buying silver futures illegal.
But how can they change the rules in the middle of the game?
Because they are the biggest group of criminals around. And they don't like sharing their loot with smaller thugs.
So what happened to the Hunt brothers after the government did that?
Well, since the government outlawed the buying of silver futures and pressured the banks to not lend any money to the Hunts, the falling price of silver and margin calls ended up forcing the Hunts into bankruptcy.
So isn't that what is happening again today?
No, not at all. Do you know how much deliverable silver existed in the Hunt brothers' day?
No, how much?
In the Hunt brothers' day, deliverable silver was around 5 billion ounces. By 1990, that number had fallen to 2 billion ounces. Do you know what it is today?
No.
Some have estimated that it is as low as 200 million ounces.
That's a 95% decline.
Yes. And it's even worse than that.
How so?
Back in the Hunt brothers' day, the government had large stockpiles of silver. Today they have zero.
Zero. How could they have zero?
Because they used it all up trying to suppress the price. But it's even worse than that.
Worse. How could it be worse?
Because today we have the Silver Eagle being bought at record pace. So many in fact, that the demand is starting to outstrip mining supply.
You mean people are buying more ounces of Silver Eagles today than ounces of silver are being mined in America?
Yes. Those two numbers are just crossing now. And that means that America will need to import silver to mint their Eagles. In fact, the Mint just announced that they will be limiting the amount of 2011 Eagles to their primary dealers.
So they are rationing silver?
Yes. They are beginning to. So you can see, the crisis in the silver market is far worse than it was in the Hunt brothers' day, and the inflation-adjusted prices just as low as it was then.
So let me see if I understand. In the Hunt brothers' day, the supply of deliverable silver was 20 or more times what it is today.
Yes.
And the inflation-adjusted price of silver today is about what it was then.
Yes.
And instead of buying with borrowed money like the Hunts did, people today are buying bullion coins with cash.
Correct.
And the demand for these coins is increasing so rapidly that it's outstripping the supply of mined US silver.
Exactly.
So the situation today is the exact opposite of how it was when the Hunt brothers were buying silver. Instead of crashing, the price of silver is set to explode to the moon.
Very soon. It will rise so high that people won't believe their rise.
That's it. I'm selling every single investment I have and buying physical silver with the cash before it becomes worthless.
Excellent. Goodbye.